And okay, let's get going. First of all, thank you for purchasing WeldTrace and trying to use it or already using it, making full use of it. So I only invited new companies, new users to this webinar or meeting. Okay, so first when you log in, you go to the dashboard. So I don't want to go into the details of this. So you would see slightly different views if you are using the light plan compared to the plus and the pro plans. So first up is the WPS and PQR. So on the left-hand side is the main menu bar. And then once you click on something, you will see the side menu bar. And then you click on the side menu, then you get into the actual function. And the buttons or whatever you need to do in there is all in this area. Okay, so that one is an advanced search for WPS all. If you're looking for a particular WPS or for a particular standard, then you use the search function. If you're looking for just some text search, like whatever is being displayed here, you can type straight in here. So, like for example, right? So there are two ASMEs. So if I'm looking for AWS, right, there's nothing there. So that's a quick way of finding things. And a couple other things. That button is an accordion to open up more details. And so the info column has a status button. So an active WPS is available for use in projects as well as for creating welder qualifications. Inactive, they won't be shown here. They're hidden, but if you have inactive WPS, you just slide this button, then you see the inactive WPS. So inactive is like archiving it, but you can unarchive them. Okay, so the functionality here is you can add your WPS or you can create. So we use these terminologies. Add is to bring your own WPS, and creating is to create something from scratch using the template that's provided in WeldTrace. So if you have any doubts, obviously you can turn to the knowledge base, help center, and so that's the button to get there. And so each of those sections organize the articles in those sections in major groups and subgroups. So WPS all. Okay, so that's where it is. And so click on an image and you would expanded zoom in, and each step is indicated, highlighted with the text here. So you can read at your leisure. So, right, just getting back to this menu, WPS all is your own WPS as well as anything that's created and approved. So if you look at this, the sample data, when you purchase WeldTrace first up, you will have some sample data loaded in, which you can delete, by the way. You can go into dashboard and then admin. So that menu is only available for the super user, and the account administrators who are given super user level access. So once you get into the admin, you'd see that button there, delete sample data, and you can just click on it. So if you click yes, delete, all the sample data will be gone. So whatever you put in, that won't be affected. So the sample data is this project, and you have some welders, WPS and all that. Okay, so the difference between a WPS that is created in WeldTrace and something that you add in, a simple way of looking at it is by looking at the designation. So if you don't see a designation, that means it's bring your own. When a WPS is created in WeldTrace, the designation is automatically coined. So it's a brief way of looking at what it is. That's one way of looking at it. And then the second way is to actually view the file. So if you click on the paperclip button, so it's in this format, so WeldTrace format. So anything that you upload is obviously going to be your file. Okay, and they're all stored securely, by the way. Right. So to bring your own WPS, let's just get rid of this. So the walkthrough is quite helpful. It actually makes you read, and if you have new users and you're trying to train them, it'll annoy the hell out of them until they click on this "Don't show again," and so now you have this. So to go through and add, you have two options. One is this form style interface where you can enter WPS, say, so, and then pick the date. So beyond the next day, tomorrow for you. So pick a standard, and then the welding processes are based on the standard that you pick. So it's for root, fill, and cap. So when you click on a particular process for root, it actually populates for fill and cap, which you can change. And then manual. Right. So these are all optional fields, but I would highly recommend that you use and fill these. So thickness range, let's say 0. Okay, so the position again is these options. Next up is the base metals. So when you click on this pick, you will see the base metals coming from the library, which is, okay, I have, okay, so the question here is there an option to have multiple joint types like grooves and fillets? Not when you're adding a WPS, but when you create a WPS, yes, it's automatically calculated. Okay. So to pick a base metal, right, great. This table behaves like Excel. So you have options, pipe plate and all that. And you can filter, sort, and find the base metal that you're looking for. Right, so you can pick one of them, and whatever you pick, so any cell, that will get highlighted here. And you save that. So if you click on that icon, then you'll see the material that you have picked. And you can upload a WPS file. So let me upload something. Okay. And so post-weld heat treatment, if you say yes, you will get a bunch of fields where you can fill in the post-weld heat treatment, temperature, time, and all that. So not applicable. And qualified, if you say yes, you must give a PQR value. If you say no, then it must be pre-qualified for it to be used in projects. If you say no, then it'll automatically be marked as inactive and you cannot use it. Okay, so I'll just say qualified and pick your demo. Date is last month. Test report and upload. Again, you pick, this will only take a WPS, PDF files. Okay, so once it's uploaded, then you can save this. Okay, now it says, right, if there's any error, it won't save and it'll highlight. So for the cap pass, I didn't pick. Save this. Right, I have a WPS. Bring your own WPS is here. So you can open the accordion to view the details. And if you click on it, get to see the details and you can view the files. And that's for the PQRs as well. And by the way, you can edit this and change the details. You can add multiple PQRs up to 3. And if you need to edit things like the WPS number itself, you can't edit it when it's in the edit mode. You'll have to click this button and then you can make the change. And once you make the change, just click on the tick and the X will cancel out. If you have used this WPS in a project against some welds, there'll be some of the fields like the processes, they'll be blocked out from being edited because that information has been used. So you can only change the things that don't affect the welds that are already produced with this WPS. But if you're creating a different WPS as like a new revision, so if you change the revision and save, it'll create a new version of this WPS, which you can then start using with changes. Okay, so that's about adding a WPS one at a time. Now I'll show you another method where you can import data. So obviously you will have a lot of WPS, more than a handful, I suppose. So we have a method for importing data. So when you click on it, it'll take you to this first step of a visit. Then you can download a template. So the template is in CSV format, so comma separated values, which you can open in Excel and edit just like as you would an Excel file, but don't save it as XLSX, just save it as CSV file. You will get this warning for the file being in CSV format, just ignore it and just save it as CSV. And a couple of things, what it cannot do is it can't change the heading row. It cannot move the columns either. So this is how WeldTrace recognizes the data that's in these cells belong to that particular data and validating it. Okay. So upload file. I've got a couple of examples here. So this has some errors. Right. So if there's any issue, got a question, I'll come to that. So if there's any issue with typos or invalid data, then you can't create it. All those cells may not be all the cells, but whenever it hits the first error, then it'll stop processing that further until you fix it. So change that into a clean file, right? So there's no issue here. So I'll open up that file as well. Okay, just zoom in a bit more. That's how the data is in, right? So I'll put in a few. So if you're looking at this particular row, so you have this WPS 101, and it's the weld process, root, fill, cap, joint type, product form, units, and the welding code, the standard is D11, the thickness range, min, max, position. Um, so some of these, if you find that the data is not getting validated, what I would do is I would recommend you to go to the article here. So click on this add at WPS. So whatever data that we accept, so those abbreviations are given here, and you must use them. And these, in case you find any issue, if you're using it correctly and it's still throwing an error, please send us a screenshot, because you know, sometimes there could be a space which is not recognized by this program, and then it'll throw an error. Otherwise, it should be fairly straightforward. You might need to give it a couple of tries before it accepts. And the base metal, you'll have to give the WeldTrace reference. So you would find the WeldTrace reference here. Open up the tab. Okay, so go to library and then base metals. Okay, so that's the WeldTrace reference. So if you want to find the material you're looking for, so go into, let's say, okay, so you've got, let's say, 335 and P1. If that's what you're looking for, by the way, you can open up the accordion to see more details. So you use that reference, so BM1056. And if you don't find a suitable base metal, WeldTrace has over 5,000, so you should be able to find it. So if you don't, and you have a specialized material that is not mentioned in any other code, you can add that here. So select, input as much information as possible, and then save it. You will get a different reference here. So that'll be unique for your account. Other companies using WeldTrace won't be able to see it. They can't use it. Okay, so that's the WeldTrace reference in here. And then post-weld heat treatment, so NA, if it is not applicable, and then put in the temperature settings and all that. So the units that's for these values is your account settings. So if you look at only the super user can see this and can change it. So the settings is either metric or US customary, and then the date format, the print options. So these are the units that this one you need to give it in. So here temperature actually basically is in Fahrenheit. So if you're using metric, it'll treat it as Celsius. And then if it's qualified, you enter the PQR details here. If there are multiple PQRs for a WPS, you can only import one through this method. So once you have created, you can edit a WPS and add the other PQRs. Unfortunately, we can only process one PQR through this import. Okay. Right. Go into create. So what it'll do, it'll read all the values and it's created the WPS here. But they don't have the files. Okay, so they are without the WPS and PQR PDF files. So we have another procedure or feature where you can click on this button. It's called bulk file upload. It differs slightly between this WPS, welder import, welders and welder qualifications, as well as materials and drawings and all that. So when you read the instructions here, it'll tell you what you need to name the file, because this is what WeldTrace actually reads. So if you're uploading a PQR, then it must have a WPS reference with the WPS number and the revision separated from the number with an underscore, and then another underscore, then the PQR number, etc. So I'll click on the browse button, and then I have some of them here. So I'll just select a few of these files. So if you see, for example, this WPS -101 underscore revision, that is 0.pdf, and the PQR for this, it's probably pre-qualified. So if you're looking at 102_1, and that's the PQR. So that's the format you need to put it in. And so what it does, it checks whether the files actually match, and if there's a match, you'll see that match. If there's no match, they'll be ignored, and if there's a duplicate, then that will be ignored as well. So only the files that match and are green, that will be uploaded. So click on that and it'll process. Okay, so going back to the question, Trace, the option to revise or delete a WPS created in WeldTrace. Okay, so you cannot delete. WeldTrace has a no delete policy. You can make it inactive, archive it, and don't have to use it. You can revise a WPS created in WeldTrace. You just need to follow the workflow. Basically, I'll show you. The next is about creating WPS in WeldTrace. Right. So the files are attached, and so that's it. So you can bring in hundreds of bits of data in here. So anything that you have already in PDF format. If you need any help with any of the data, just send us some sample WPS and PQR files. We'll have a look at it and then put in how it should go in the CSV file, and then rename that file. Then you can try it, and once it goes through, then it's so simple. You just need to maybe spend a bit of time and fixing the CSV file with the data, and then it'll upload like a dream. Okay, so creating a WPS in WeldTrace. So click on the create button here, and so you'll see this option. So create WPS from a PQR. Create WPS from multiple PQRs. So that's combining PQRs into a WPS, and then a preliminary. So we always start with preliminary WPS in WeldTrace. There is a particular reason, and so click on I'll click on the preliminary WPS. For this exercise, take ASME 9, and then use customary. So click proceed, and then you have this template where you can fill in all the data. Now, with the sample data, I'll just show you how this looks. Okay, go to the WPS. So any WPS that you create in WeldTrace, they all get stored here. And if they are approved, only those approved WPS will get copied to WPS all. And so that's the one. And where only the WPS that are appearing here and in active status can be used in projects or creating welder qualifications. So looking at the WPS, so there's a preliminary WPS already in the sample data. And so the eye icon here is to open up the snippet view, just a quick view of what it is, apart from your accordion, which may not have much details in this case. And then, so that is the PDF file that's automatically created by WeldTrace. And so click on the WPS number itself to open it. So that opens up a view page where you can see all the details. And then if you need to make changes, you click on edit. A preliminary WPS is where you put in majority of the information. So you only do that once. And in WeldTrace, there's no cost for creating preliminary WPS. Obviously, you can't use it in projects. And you can change it a number of times. And the preliminary WPS doesn't validate everything for the code. So it's basically a draft WPS. It's meant to be changed, used as a draft, and then you create a PQR from it, and then you create a WPS from that PQR. So it may look a little bit cumbersome. So people ask me, why can't we write a PQR directly? It's for the purposes of validating the data and the way to process the data. So WeldTrace is written in such a way that there's hundreds of bits of data that has to be processed and validated. And when you have different standards, you have a lot of work, and it takes months to generate a clean template that people can use, which is code compliant. So the way it is, way it's laid out, you have the qualification details, joint details as per the standard, joint design, and the base metal section. If you have dissimilar metals, click on it, and so you get the second option, and the scope. Then you can have up to 3 different processes, and here you will see that it goes into tabs. So 1, 2, and 3, and then further. So all the sections in a process go into further tabs as well, going across this way. And if you have multiple passes, so you look at process 2, filler metal, so it has 2 passes or 2 groups of passes. So filler metal is has 2 sets of data that you need to put in, the diameter and the deposit thickness. And if you go to electrical, they have 2 passes, right? So you have tabs here, and tabs here. And to copy the data, there's this button here. It copies whatever you put in process 1 in different tabs, copies to other processes. And then if you go into, let's say, multi-pass data, so like, for example, gas, right? So copy values to all passes. So that will copy pass 1 to pass 2. You would find that in electrical as well. So it's not really onerous for doing the data entry. Okay, so that's how this works. And so creating, let's start with a number. Okay, revision, 0, and then you pick a date. The construction code, you can use it. It's an optional field. And then if there's any specification that your customer gives, you can enter that here. And that's optional as well. And you can upload a specification document, and that will get stitched to the PDF file that's generated. Okay, so select customers. If there's a customer, you need to enter the customer into the organization section, and then you can pick, or you can create a customer through this button. So join type, again, the join type options are based on the standard. Join design, so single V groove. And here it's a range. So the angle, I'll give it a range. So if I'm going to use 60s, I'll just split it into either way. It can be changed in PQR because PQR uses single values, and WPS in some cases they use the range. So root face, right, and gap. Right. So again, some of these are required, some of these are optional, and so required fields are shown with an asterisk. So back gouging, no. Backing, let's say it's width, and the type is consumable insert. So if you select retainer, then you'll have to pick the retainer. That's how it goes. So if a field is invalid or it shouldn't be picked, then you would see this hatched out with the no entry button. So edge preparation, surface, and these are for stud. Now you pick the join design diagram by clicking on here. WeldTrace has a limited set of join diagrams, and so with backing, without with so use, in case you don't find something that you need to use, you can always upload. So you can just upload your own join design diagram, which obviously there are so many different programs to create a simple sketch, and just click on that and upload. So click here, use. Okay. And then the layer sequence diagram or pass diagram. So pick the one that's most appropriate. Again, you can upload your own diagram. Go to alloy, and so I'll just leave this similar as no. So select base metal. Right. So as I mentioned before, I'm looking for a particular material. So you can open up the search drop down here, and then go for it. Works very similar to Excel. Right. So I'm looking for 335P12. So it's you can check the values and all that. So click save. Okay, it's entered here. Then select the pipe. So for this demo, let's say it's 2.5 inch schedule 160. Okay, so the pipe is picked. Post-weld heat treatment, I would say without. Impacts with hardness without. And then the first process, let's say it's GTAW. Okay, so GTAW is manual. And I would say 2 passes and pick a filler metal. So when you click on this button, again, the table opens up where you would see the filler metal shown here are for steel alloy as well as GTW with a rules check button enabled. If you click this button, so it's disabled and it will show all the filler metals. So if you don't find something, again, you can add a filler metal to the WeldTrace library and it'll be the first one that you see in the list. So whatever you add will be shown at the top. Okay. So for this, you just click on this sort. So if I'm looking for, let's say 90, I think SB3, so that's one I'm looking for. I'll save that. Right, so filler metal product form, solid. So these are optional fields, and consumable insert is width, and the filler metal diameter, let's say 0.065, and we'll use the same thing. And the deposit thickness, let's say 5. So that calculates the maximum out of these values. And go to preheat. Okay, so the preheat temperature is 250, and let's say this is 570. We can put in notes here. And for gas, so shielding gas, okay, so let's say it's argon helium mixture. So, okay, so 95% argon and 5 helium, and the flow rate, let's say it's 25. Again, you can copy the values to all the passes. So pass 1 to the pass 2, so it's got the same value. And go to electrical. Okay, so let's say it's for the first pass 80 to 120 amps. So that's a range. What it'll do is when you create a PQR, it'll pick the median, and you can change it. Let's say 9 to 12, and the travel speed is 5. So when you tab out, you get the heat input values calculated, and the current tire polarity, negative, and pulsing DC, I'd say no. Tungsten size, 0.065. Okay, then copy the values to all the passes, and technique, and these values here somewhere, 0.35. Pinning, white brush, no pinning, phosphor side. So because we put 2 multi. Okay. As you enter the values, you can open up the range qualified slider, and it'll calculate, and you can check whether it's correct, or whatever you're looking for, is that achieved and all that. So let's do one more. So second process, click on the plus button, so you get the process 2 opened. And for this one, let's say GMAW semi-auto, again multi-pass, let's say it's 3 passes, and filler metal, let's use the same thing. solid. Leave these out. Supplemental, again, these are optional fields. And so then 7. The preheat. Okay. So if you need to copy all those things, you can do that from copy values to all the processes, and then you can edit this. So let's say GMAW semi-auto. So you have all those copied in anyway. So if you need to add another pass, look at this way. So I think that was 0.06. Right. Preheat gas. So because I added the third pass, so it'll have no value here. Right, go to pass 1, then copy. So electrical, it'll be the same. No value there, so just copy. And so contact to work distance, let's say 1. Right. So that's pretty much it for saving, creating PWPS. So I'll just save this. It might take a bit of time, but it doesn't validate and show any errors. So PWPS is a draft WPS. Okay, so the 201 is here. So whatever has been selected, it's all here. And there will be a PDF file as well, but you can't use it. It'll say preliminary across as a watermark, but you'll be able to see the ranges and everything. Okay, so it's laid out like this, 2 different processes, and the pass values are in separate columns. Now, the next step is to create a PQR. So go into this option here, right? So there's only one that matches. So you won't see the sample data here. It's only the data that you create. And so click on Create button. Okay, so you can see that all the values that you had given in the preliminary WPS, the mid value for anything with a range is taken. So everything else is copied, and so you don't have to enter the data again, other than the actual values that you need to record, obviously. So let's say give it a number and location. Okay, so you can change these. If you don't want the PWPS appearing here, just clear that out, and you can add specifications. Now I can change any of these values because you only use the draft WPS, so they are all draft values. So any of these can be changed, and you can pick a different base metal. So you can have just one preliminary WPS and create a number of PQRs from it and keep changing them here. And so if you were to go and submit it, okay, so you'll go and validate everything, and it'll say, oh, cannot complete the action, show the warning messages. So look for the warning messages. So what it shows here is the tab is highlighted and it says, oh, there's at least one issue here. And process 2 has at least 4 issues. So what are those 4? In position tab, there's 1, and then electrical, there's 3. So you can easily go through. There's no issue, then just scroll down, process 1, position. Okay, so position is a required field, and a PWPS, you don't have to enter a position because, as me mine, a WPS doesn't require a position. So that's why it isn't there. And so it's all clear now. So go into process 2, again, position. So let's say it's 5G, and electrical, pass 1, 2, and 3. There's some issue here. What is that issue? Transfer mode. Okay, so globular, and I'll just copy values to all passes. It's cleared. And position, so vertical progression. So that I didn't pick. That's why it was staying up. And you can change the actual values used. Let's say it's just 1100 amps. So here it was 105 for pass to, etc. Now you can go ahead and submit it, but it won't take that as a valid PQR because you haven't input the test results. So test result, these are required tests and these are optional tests. And here is you enter the test result values. So performed and acceptable means you can approve the PQR. Not performed or not acceptable, you cannot approve. You can't go through the next step in the workflow. And you can upload the test report and it'll get stitched to the PQR file. Let's say that one. And the optional tests, you can leave it blank, or you can just say, if you have done it, performed, otherwise you say not performed. And tension tests. So you need to give at least one value here. So let's say specimen number 1. And so width is 1 inch, thickness is 0.25. The ultimate total load, let's say it's 12,000 pounds. So now it says the tensile strength does not meet UW 153. The value is low. So did that deliberately. So let's say it's 15,000. Then it accepts. Okay, so unit stress is 60,000 psi, 60 ksi. Then we have look at the base metal. We have 60, it matches at least, so that's fine. So validation is done at several stages. Okay, let's say it's ductile base metal. So I won't go into the other steps. You can put in 4 different values here. And notch toughness test. So let's say specimen 1, and then notch location base metal, weld metal 0.4, and let's say it's minus 50 Fahrenheit. The impact value is, let's say, 14 and 60% shear. Again, some of these values are optional. And cool expansion. Okay, so you can upload the test report here. And welder ID. And then you say approval recommended. So it's a 2-step process. We have somebody who's preparing and then someone approving. It can be the same person. So going again, range qualified. Range qualified values can be seen here. anytime. And when you save, the preview button will also be enabled, and you can preview the PDF file too. So I'll go ahead and submit it. If there's no issues, it will be submitted. If there's any issue, then it will show up errors. It's loading. Okay, now it's appearing in the PQR list with awaiting approval. So that's the first step done. So now just click on it says waiting approval, and you can just go through. The person who's approving the PQR can see all the details. If there's any issue, then go into edit and then change, and then it goes through the same two steps again. So when you edit, it goes to awaiting approval, and then you have to come back and submit it. So approved. If it's not approved, then it'll say rejected. So submitted. Okay, it's approved. So now the PQR. So you see the designation with a bit of range qualified values and all that. And it's in this format. And any test reports, they are shown hyperlinked. So you click on it, and then it goes into that. And if you don't want it to appear, then don't attach it, or just give the reference alone. And so that's what it is. And we have, I've logged in as this person. So we have the stamp and the signature, and it's digitally put together by WeldTrace. It's based on the login. So the next and the final step is to create a WPS. So create WPS from APQR 2021 and units. So there's only one that matches. If there's multiple, there's a different step, and then we have knowledge base article in our help center. Okay, so once the bulk of the work is in writing your draft or preliminary WPS. So once you have done that, it's very easy and you can do it really quickly. So let's say it's WPS 1 and the revision. You can create any number of revision, any number of WPS from a PQR, and put the date, title, say it's demo. Again, you can pick a customer. We have a customer. Then in the WPS, you'll see the range qualified values like this. So if you don't want, this was an earlier question. So you can have the joint, multiple joint types as well. So, but if you don't want it, you can remove it. And like backing is with. So if it is without, then it'll probably show as with and without. Then you can remove one of those. And you can make some changes, but not a lot. So any change has to be within the range qualified values. So P number range is P number 4 to 4, 3, and 1. And so if you don't want 3 and 1 for this WPS, you leave it as 4 to 4 only. And you can change the range qualified values and make it a bit tighter. And again, any of these things can be changed, like, but you can't change the process itself. The type can be changed within the range qualified value, etc. We can make some changes here, like, you know, what can be done. You can make the amps and walls tighter again. And now just click on approval recommended. Again, this is the first step in creating a WPS. So it's 2 steps. So submit it. If there's any issue, then it'll show errors. Otherwise, it'll process and okay. Now it says again, waiting approval. So open that up, and approved. So submit it. Okay, WPS has been approved, and you can start using it in the projects. So that pretty much covers our session for today. Any questions? If you have any issues, you can always send an email, or you can create a ticket. So it's also easy to create a ticket. So you go into the knowledge base site and sign in. And your WeldTrace login doesn't work here, so you can sign in using a Google account or create an account, and then click on the add ticket. That's the most preferred way of dealing with any issues. And yeah, that's we'll respond quicker if it comes as a ticket rather than as an email, because there's more eyes looking at that. Thanks again for joining in. And again, as said, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Thank you.